Hey, everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. And I am with the very patient, very kind Patrick Sweany. I want to thank, I want to thank
Craig's
our
also
mutual.
very patient and kind, So just so we're aware, I started the train wreck of technical difficulty.
But I've successfully continued it.
Right on.
I want to thank our mutual friend, Jovi McMahon, who's a great guy. If you haven't heard, Joe was on the show a while back. Excellent producer, great musician and songwriter. So if you haven't heard Joe's interview, check him out. And we are coming live at you from the Bongo Room. Give you cliff notes on Pat. Patrick's an awesome blues guitarist, singer, songwriter, and artist. He's originally from Massillon, Ohio, and he currently lives in Nashville. If you are a blues fan, especially what I call old school guitar approach, where the guitar exists to create harmony, create soulful fills and really good solos with great tone and great natural tube breakup, Patrick Sweany's your man. You need to listen to him. So he's also got an incredible voice. His voice is like, I don't even know how he explained it. His voice is like a separate instrument, and he uses it. He's smart enough to know how to use it in his songs too, or accidental enough, but whatever he's doing, it works really well. So pay attention.
Why, thank you, Craig.
Let's listen to his music and you'll see what I mean. And honestly, I mean, he's kind of like Muddy Waters in his approach to making music. So I first got turned on to Patrick when I heard his song called Them Shoes. That must have been licensed too, right?
Oh, yeah. That's the song that's carried my career. It really is.
Freaking amazing song. I remember hearing that, I wrote it here. I remember it because I got out of bed and I have like whatever it is, Shazam or some shit, and I like downloaded it the next day and I listened to it like 50 times in a row. It was so like, and we'll talk about it, of course, but it's a pretty perfect song. So, and since 1999, Pat's released 12 albums and an EP. So please check them out. Dude, thank you so much for your time and patience, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you, man. Thanks for finishing it.
It's a sad day now. Thank you for giving a shit. That's like you open the door nowadays. Like, my God, thank you so much. Pat, was there a particular experience that was critical to you becoming a musician, and how did you also start playing music professionally?
Well, my dad's a guitar player and, was a folk guitar player and would, play around just, at the house. We have two brothers. So, he's got three boys, him and I guess he was a teacher until I was about, I don't know, 9, maybe earlier than that, 8 or 9. But and then but he also played in like the the folk group at church. They do like the 5 o'clock mass, stuff like that. And then after rehearsal, him and the other guitar player, they would pick a little after that. And I just thought that was the coolest, neatest thing. So I would go to his rehearsals with them and just sort of hang out, so I could hang out and listen to that. And then just asked Dad, hey, could I, and then I was interested in the music that he was playing, which was, like folks, like really like early 60s folk records. Like Dad stopped buying records when Dylan went electric.
Oh, wow.
Like there. So he was an acoustic guy, and it was always male singers, stuff like, like that, but it was, he loved Gordon Lightfoot. He loved this
John Fahey
duo. Fahey wasn't, that wasn't really it. He loved Pete Seeger, had a lot of Pete Seeger albums, but, he also, from being in college, he loved the Kingston Trio, and like that kind of commercially folk stuff. But I mean, it was fun stuff to sing, and it was easy to learn. And that's, so Dad's like, oh yeah, I know this. I like, I'm like, yeah, that's and it's, there was that kind of thing that, singing and playing, accompanying yourself just always sort of appealed to me. I just thought that was cool. So, I asked Dad if I could learn to play. And I was like, sure. And, he showed me some chords on his guitar, and, he had nice Southern Jumbo Gibson, and he kept silk and steel strings on it, which was sort of a, very like,
what kind of strings?
Silk and Labella silk and steel. So they were they're less harsh than like a bronze, string. And I think they developed those as they're not quite a flat wound.
Okay.
But they have a little mellower sound. And, Dad just liked liked the sound of them, and they, I think possibly because of the lower tension, because he played 12-string as well, so he liked, Pete Seeger, his folk icon, because he liked hearing Seeger do these lead belly songs or do the walking bass on this 12-string guitar. So then Dad had lead belly records, which just sounded like, aliens to me at first. I was more into, I was more open to listening to like the Pete Seeger playing like bourgeois blues and doing these boogie licks. And then he also had this comp that had Lightning Hopkins on it. I was like, this is what is this? Look at this cool son bitch, sunglasses, slim, smooth looking dude. And he sounds like this, and it was probably Mojo Hand or Mr. Charlie or something like that. And I was like, man, this is way different, and it's right at about that time. And I heard, it was the Cosby Show was on TV, and everyone watching primetime TV, that they did that nighttime is the right time. There's some sort of skit where all the kids are pantomiming and singing and stuff like that on that show. And I just heard that, and I'm like, what is this? And I found out that was Ray Charles. It was like singing. I'd never heard anything like that, and I'm like, man, this is something so different. This is music. Like, I know I like music, but I didn't know I like this music.
Right.
And so, just being kind of a, suburban kid without, there weren't a lot of other kids around or other than like, brothers and stuff. He knows that now, but I wanted to go on record, Craig. Strong. Means he's like, but also, it's funny, like my dad, like playing music was always a social event, or like, hey, you might go to the bluegrass jam, or like, that was really the only live music I ever saw was, kind of Moose Lodge band, when you go after the football game. Yeah.
Once you started playing, what were some of the challenges early on in getting things moving?
Meaning like what, like when? You mean like as far as like trying to like,
well, like
or like,
after your high school years, and you said, okay, you said, okay, I'm doing this. I know this is going to be my life, because it's not a job, it's a lifestyle.
Right.
What was some of the challenges in breaking through?
Well, a lot of it was, as far as breaking through, that's sort of hard to think. Like when you start playing and you just want to you want to play in front of people, and you realize, do you even have the physical stamina to do it? And that's when you start, you're playing your first gig and realize, oh man, I've been practicing so much, my voice is kind of shot, and then having to do your first gig, or like, can I sing the whole thing? And like, that moment where you think so I knew I just had to do it more. And I went to school at Kent State University in Ohio. And the reason I went there is because my dad would go to the Kent State they had a folk festival.
Okay.
And they had and they had these cool things called the workshops, and they had, so all the conference rooms on the third floor of sort of like the university building, or at least the front, the front where the offices and things were. In the conference rooms above, they would have all the different, local, semi-local, regional acts, doing little, what they called workshops, small performances. And it was great,
That's really cool.
Everything, like old time music like that, there, it doesn't happen anymore, So, but also what was cool, you'd see like the bluegrass guys would show up, and they wouldn't go see one other thing. They would just pick. And then if they had to go do a workshop, they'd leave the little bluegrass jam room, go do their thing, and then come right back. And those guys would pick all day. So, you see these just, there were local guys, world-class, players. And then the country blues guys, which my dad was into, because, my dad had like Dave Van Ronk albums and John Hammond Jr. albums, which that really, really is what showed me the way when I was into that. Like I got hip to that. that opened all the doors, like, for me to hear like that. And also, John Hammond was a cool looking dude on that kind of like cool looking dude in a white jean jacket, man. And, and cool hair and just leaning against a wall. And I'm like, but he's also, he's playing, country blues. And then, but he's also, he's doing like country blues versions, like Chuck Berry songs and shit. And that's hip. Like, and that's a white dude. He's not a storybook guy. That dude's still alive. That guy plays shows. Like, that guy does concerts, like you could, it was pre-internet, but, you could find out, like in magazines, if they'd have he'd post, tour schedule or something. So that was big. So like, I see these other cats that would, do the country, like that lived in Kent or around Kent, and they had this little scene of like country blues pickers. And I met my friend Eric Noden, lives in Chicago, been there for 30 years probably. Amazing guitar player and piano player, but really like one of the best, like Big Bill Brunsey, like, absolutely like fantastic knowledge and player of like the 20s and 30s era kind of stuff. So him and I got together and put a little band. We had a mutual teacher, a guy named Andy Cohen, who was real into Reverend Gary Davis, who Eric was a student of previously. And then I took some lessons off of and
from Reverend Gary Davis.
Well, no, from a guy who was really into Reverend Gary Davis, who played that stuff really, pretty well. And,
I love his version of Death Don't Have No Mercy.
Oh man,
it's phenomenal. Yeah.
So very much digging into that and like realizing like, okay, like this folky, these folky versions of shit I'm doing, you got to get to the real thing. But so I took some lessons off of Cohen, and then it was sort of like he'd smoke my pot, and then I'd do I'd help him move some shit, or like that. He definitely.
So there was no money exchanged. It was all like
not
bartering?
Really. No, like I guess it might have been the original one, but I'm just like, I think I'm gonna get a guitar lesson, and I hang out, I wait for this dude, at the coffee shop he's always at, right around the corner from his house, and a place that eventually became my first Monday gig, like a residency. Cool. Like I played it, so that was what I'm getting to, is like this. So there was still this little bit of a social where they had an open mic night at this old coffee house run by this old hippie lady, and East Cafe on the corner of Franklin.
Hey guys, ever wish you could get involved in music licensing and start collecting ongoing royalties for placing your tracks in movies, commercials, trailers, and video games? Well, now you can. Simply check out this new free training video called Where the Money's Hiding in the Music Business. You can find it online at musicreboot.com. And this video shows you how to create the financial stability you've always wanted and how to take advantage of the current explosion of opportunities in music licensing due to the current situation of streaming and the internet. So check it out online right now at musicreboot.com. Whether you've never made a placement before, or even if you've made a few placements, but you don't have a specific system to make ongoing placements more consistently, this video's got you covered. So check it out online right now at musicreboot.com.
That's shit you think you remember your whole life. Can't think of them now. But yeah,
wait, just wait. Yeah. It gets worse.
Pass.
Yeah, it gets worse.
So, I started playing there and doing, my thing, and then sort of got to meet the other cats, guys like Jack DeLisandro and John Reynolds and John Mosey and some other friend Mike Lenz, who I got to be playing partners with, and still, just he's the guy that showed me the tuning that I used for Them Shoes and a lot of songs. Like Mike Lenz is also a very important part of the Northeast Ohio, Kent, Akron music scene. Like he gave lessons to Dan Arbach. Like
I didn't know he was from that area.
Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Oh yeah, Akron.
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't know
like,
that.
Like there. That's like I grew up. Like Akron was like the biggest close city. So it was like whatever, like 15, maybe 20 miles from where I grew up, and it was 10 minutes from Kent where I went to school. So you're always like, if you're going to do it, you're always bouncing back and forth,
sure.
Akron, at least, doing like the bar gigging. So I was real lucky. So I was able to score this gig, because I do it, for tips, I love, college student. And at that point, I didn't even have a car. I was taking the bus and carrying, 2 and 3 guitar cases on the bus and shit, and learning how to perform. So it was a real thing. And then right then, a friend of mine turned me on to a bar gig right down the street. So I started playing there, and really kind of a place called the Blue Moon. And that, and it was a little more serious, people, you entertain people drinking, and I had my own, they give me a night, give me Wednesday. So I'm doing that. And
you were doing all originals, or were you mixing originals and covers? Or
no,
covers?
None of them. I wasn't writing songs at all.
Okay.
At that point. No, this is very early 90s. I really didn't start writing any songs until probably 1990s.
Well, once you did, you're pretty freaking prolific.
Well, to a degree.
12 albums and an EP.
Yeah, but I mean, it's but it's over 20 some years. When you add up the time, it's not prolific. But I mean, I always made sure that I recorded original material. I didn't know no covers or anything like that.
Sure.
And just because I just could not afford to pay the licensing.
Sure.
That was it. You put out a record, it's every dollar you got. So
every hour.
But that was also, that's also after, getting some experience and just being like, well, the only way to it's only worth it to make a record if you can make them out of your own songs.
Sure.
And all these guys, I've been following older cats around, the blues guys, those survive, it's like guys like Honey Boy Edwards, he was in Chicago, and I had some mutual friends that played with him sometimes. And so I'd go see him a lot. And when he came through, and then Robert Junior Lockwood lived in Cleveland, who was the only person to ever learn, knees to knees from Robert Johnson, the guy. He was also he played on all the great Sonny Boy Williamson and Little Walter records, he was the Chess session guitar player, extremely sort of unknown, but extremely involved. Putting, jazzy or swing type elements into hard blues, like very much the sound of modern, what they call modern Chicago blues in like the 50s, and 60s, was so much a part of Robert Lockwood. And but he played every Wednesday and then would do some shows here and there, or a little festival or something like that. And then, and this is again later on after I started like I watch him, but every time he says, you got to be yourself. And then he's like, he said, they already got one of me. You got to be yourself.
That's cool. They already got one of me.
And for a guy who could have, made a tidy living just rehashing Robert Johnson his whole life, and doing, like that, he didn't give a shit. Like, he was always trying to do his own thing. He changed his guitar style like 4 times in his career. Like he had, he quit playing 5 times, he said, just quit, didn't, got other gigs, got job, whatever, between the, the late 50s or 60s till late. Like, so he was a huge influence on me of like, well, this is, I learned a lot by just watching him and the way that he threw chords and the way he, framed the vocal and framed the song, but also had this, other thing that he added to it, a jazziness to it that wasn't, wasn't wanking, wasn't trying to show off. It was just this musical thing that he was very serious and very proud of. And
is that the only British word you picked up?
What? Which one?
Wanking. Because nobody,
well, I definitely,
nobody
like,
American,
like it's also it's been adopted by the guitar community of like,
nobody says,
yeah, I'm just like,
okay. Yeah. Nobody says wanking or wanker.
Oh man, all the time here in Nashville.
Oh, do you really?
But but being able to see him and then open up for him, and my and my dad wanting to go to, like, Dad and I going to concerts and stuff together, like, hey, I'll, if it's up in Cleveland, like, hey Dad, I'll drive when I, I'll drive, meet me here, I'll drive, and going to Cleveland,
yeah,
the big city,
the Agora Ballroom.
But that, places like that. I mean, I've seen hundreds of concerts. The Agora, man, what a great place. But even just like that, little club, stuff like that. But Robert would see us, and I usually knew, at that point I'd been gigging a new club, and I could get in and say hi and just, and I knew to be respectful.
Sure.
Just, hit him with questions, because I'd see all these, these squares, pumping for Robert Johnson information. And he had a reputation for being a little bit grumpy about it. I mean, I never really saw it. I've seen him be short with people when, he really had, to do the show, and people were just, kind of just asking ridiculous shit, or, but he was, if he wasn't there when Robert Johnson got murdered, he was close by. And, he was only 16 or 17. This was his best friend.
Right.
And the guy that showed him, like Robert Jr. told me that they used to make thousands of dollars during the Depression a day, working two sides of the Mississippi Bridge, one on the side, one on the Clarksdale side, playing Terraplane blues and playing, because Robert Johnson was known, no one knew what he looked like. So he would just,
So he just on tips.
Just on tips,
busking.
people come by. And that was the main there's one road, to get, on Saturday to go to store, whatever, bring cotton to market, all that stuff.
$1,600? Is that what you said?
He said thousands of dollars.
Thousands
I've heard him say
$1,000.
I've heard him say $3,000.
That's like 30 grand today or something like that.
Oh yeah. No, be like, such a baller amount of money, like rock star money, pardon me. But and then, some dumbass that was in there goes, what did you do? Did you still have that money? And he's like,
just don't ask
motherfucker. Shit was gone by morning.
Yeah.
It's like,
you're 16. No, I didn't put in it.
We
didn't set up an IRA.
20s, they are just partying, gambling, women, whatever, and maybe Rob, that was his guy. I mean, the guy that gave him his way through the world. And Robert, because me and my dad would go to these concerts from the time I was a kid all the way up, and until I moved to Nashville, when Robert was still alive. He goes, I like to see you. He said to you and your dad, because old Robert never had a dad like that.
Wow.
So me and Dad are like this, just devastated, trying not to cry in front of our, our hero, but like that. So I was like, so when he would recognize, and I'd be like, we'd open a show, and then me and my bass player Ted, who plays in Tiger Beats, was in Ohio at the time. We would do some duo gigs together and playing my songs off of my very first record. And we're just hanging out, talking to Robert, and back in the little green room. And Ted said, "Oh man," he said, "we usually have a drummer with us too." He said, "But we love doing that." And Robert just stabs him, and he has this his hands like a surgeon, but so strong. He grabs him and he says, "Don't you never be yourself." There, just so there's, you talk about a turning point moment, there it was.
Yeah.
Ted was with me, he's so that really set me. I'd moved back right after college. I moved to Eureka Springs, Arkansas, a little town in the Ozarks, about an hour from the University of Arkansas at the time. Now they have the big road. I think it's about 40 minutes. But had a friend of a friend whose father had a property there that they had to, kind of sit on until they could sell it. And, they needed somebody to keep an eye on it. And I was just getting out of school. I had I had an independence. I had a paper to write, big paper to write, turn it in at the end of the semester, whatever. And so I thought, well, yeah, shit, man, I'll go do that. There's a college an hour away. I can play some gigs, can do something. And there's a little town, Eureka Springs. They got a little downtown. They got a little folk festival, and it looks like they got a blues festival here in the summer. Go check that out. And there, and hit open mics and stuff. The house sold, and when it sold, I had I was on the road opening for this blues rock guitar player that had came to town and took up with the lady that ran the blues festival. And he brought him out to a couple of my gigs, just playing like a hotel balcony gig, and he tried to play Stump the Band with me. He's like, "Oh, do you know any Blind Willie Johnson?" I'm like, "Oh, I love Blind Willie Johnson. I know this one and this one and this one." I was, total nerd. I just hadn't started writing songs yet, but it really just immersed of just like knowing all the cool killer country blues shit from the 20s and 30s. Just totally dedicated to that thing. Son House. Bam, I got 3 Son House ready to rock. I got, Blind Blake. I'm playing, because I was really, doing a lot of like Piedmont fingerstyle guitar and like that. And then he hit me with the Skip James, and I had, at the time I'd been working on it. I had it, because I was just living by myself. I didn't go into school anymore and nothing to do and no money. So I just played guitar all day, would practice 6 hours a day, and then, because I knew this was the time I got to get real, go out and do it. Well, that guy, that player, and bad alcohol problem. Off a stage somewhere in like on, in some Caribbean, he was on a festival or something like there, jumped off stage, shattered his heel.
God, I can't imagine
had
how
to
that
come
hurts.
back, cancel a bunch of stuff. So we had to get back out on the road. He asked me to open for him, and I drove around and like, so I was making, I think I was making $300 a week, just flat. And then usually $50 a show or more if the promoter or whatever would add, would throw some kick in. I was of course driving him in my little minivan.
Everybody's, man. You had mentioned Nashville, but this is all before you moved to Nashville. What prompted you to move
this is 1998.
What prompted you to move to Nashville?
Well, that would have been, it was over 10 years after all that. It was I just burned through the talent pool that could go on the road and play shows that was in Northeast Ohio.
Sure.
That makes tons of sense. Do it, guys that were competent enough and professional.
Did you know anybody in Nashville?
And for the money that I could pay them, like
yeah, I did.
But if somebody would flake or something, all the calls I were making were to guys from Nashville. And I'm like, well, how much would you? And then hearing, what a pro rate is, and just like, son of a bitch. Like,
so you moved out. So you moved out.
So I moved there. I'm just like, this is how, this got to take the mountain to Mohammed.
Yeah.
And I was really proud of being able, because, the Black Keys had stayed home. Like, there are there are successful local heroes, and I know Dan, and Dan played in my band in like 99 to, well, I guess 2001. That he, that they stayed home. It was affordable to do, and I'm just like, yeah, and it is, there's no place cheaper to live than Northeast Ohio.
I'm sure.
Like, it's because it's lame, I mean, it was a wonderful place growing up, and I love going home and always feel, home there. But it's, it ain't Nashville. It ain't New York. It ain't LA, But Nashville was the logical choice. And I honestly thought shortly after, the early 2000s, married and divorced, moving back from Arkansas, I was really thinking about a move to Nashville then, but just had no idea how I could do it, and that but definitely just at that point, it was like, I'm just going to dedicate myself to doing my thing. I'm just going to work as much as I can, save up money, make records, try to play shows, try to break out.
Yeah, of course.
And, and playing bars and doing that to finance, going on the road or opening a show for somebody and losing money or trying to play local opener shows and things like that to kind of,
So you just doubled down on your career.
What's that? Yeah, without a doubt.
You just said, hey, man, this is my time. Yeah. I'm going to just hump it.
Right. Less bars, more real real shows,
Real gigs.
focusing on, the band as this rock and roll entity, leaving the blues scene thing, because it seemed like it was, just wasn't, only people having any
It's
sort of
it's probably the
success
lowest paying
is all this
genre.
shredder kind of stuff, like, but we're first on the bill no matter what, because we're playing original music. We're not just soloing over, Freddie King and Albert King grooves.
Sure.
Like, which I love Freddie and Albert King more
Sure.
than anything, but like, they did it. They did it already.
Right.
So just being like, this is, doing this thing, and then doing that for a few years to absolutely the point where it just didn't make sense anymore to, if I couldn't have a good band backing me up. And I appreciate all the, the guys that I did play with, but they're just like, man, everyone has a day gig, everyone has lives and things like that. And there's not an infrastructure other places like there is here, where there's guys who are lifelong musicians, career musicians. It's a job.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a hobby. It's not a weekend thing.
Yeah.
And now, mind you, that became a big learning process of like, well, Pat, you've got to be able to generate income and do these things and pay people what the rate is and things like that, which obviously, like if they dig a gig, I've been really lucky. Guys gave me a break early on of like, they understand, but which also sort of led to my role in sort of the Nashville kind of, at least, in my small little world here on the East Side. Like, if you've been out on the road with me, like, an act can hire you, you're going to be pro.
Yeah.
You're going to do your thing. And I really love I love that role.
Yeah.
Being like that, of being the road dog and being, what to do. When we show up to a club, we know exactly what, a sound check. I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what I want to hear. I know that it's attainable. I know how to do it. I'm very polite and very clear, because I know people do things for their own reasons.
Sure.
They don't do them for your reasons.
No, not usually. Unless it's your wife.
And applying that to things and seeing the true professional. And I wish I'd learned that a lot sooner.
Sure.
That's the lingering thing of us, like, man, I really could have, I have opened up more doors, just knowing that, having your shit together a lot earlier, not that, I have a reputation as a fuck up early on or anything like that. I mean, we always got up there and did it, but, and I tried to educate myself on the environment, like how a microphone works and how, what's going to make the band sound good, what's going to make the band sound like shit. If you bring kick drum up too loud in the mix, it's, it's going to eat this or what have you. And that's, I like the camaraderie of sort of the industry vet kind of thing. And like that little thing of like that, cause it's us, it's not a great job. Like, being a crew guy isn't a great job.
No,
but it's the job,
right.
You make the shit happen. Like the people that everybody having all that fun can't do it without the sound guy, can't do it without the monitor guy.
Sure.
Like, it doesn't happen, any of those crew guys. And I really loved that sort of, kind of blue collar rock and roll appeal. And, so I've really realized how, and then also, as and again, as the Black, my career sort of tied, to the Black Keys. I mean, Dan Auerbach produced and engineered like the song that makes, there's the reason I have a career. But like the guys, the guys that worked on guitars and stuff like that, like, Dan Johnson, his right hand man, and he's an absolute artist as far as, a guitar builder, fixer, like, in some ways, and just a dear friend. He's been with him since they could hire a guy.
Wow.
And like, like the whole time, and like knowing that like there's rock and roll guys, like, but before that, Dan Johnson was, he was Judas Priest guitar tech.
Oh, wow.
All that because Tim the Ripper Owens from Akron, Dan Johnson's bandmate.
I didn't know Tim was from Akron. That's funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Him and Dan Johnson were in a band together. Ripper got the
Priest gig.
Got the Priest gig, and well, KK needs a guy. Well, I got a guy. Bring him on.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty neat. So like there's this thing of like there's a career and a thing, this small world that we exist in that
Well, I think
gaining a lot of knowledge from people like Dan and of the real makings of it, how to sound good when you hit the stage, when you've got 5 minutes to get ready.
I think
get
music,
your shit out there and plugged in and sound like a professional. It's just
sure, man. Hey, I want to talk about some of your songs that I love. All right, and I really dig your music. So this was not how to weed this down. Let's talk about the Big Daddy, Them Shoes from
Shoes.
Every Hour is $1 Gone. A few questions about this. I do not usually ask about names or album covers, but the name of that album, Every Hour is $1 Gone, especially for a blues album. I just thought that was such a cool album. It was like my second favorite blues album to Junior Kimbrough. Most Things Haven't Worked Out, right? I don't know if you ever heard that record. It's great.
I very much. And also, that was a very powerful title that very much influenced sort of like, can you have a sentence as a title?
That was
like
Most
that sort
Things
of opened the door to that.
Out.
But I had that line and in that song, Million to Me. And, I was just sort of joking around about the expense of touring and, loading, which at that time, pretty naive because, like I could buy a really decent, Chevy van that we would, drive for 150,000 miles for, about $3,000,
Yeah, now that's what you pay for the wheels.
Right. East Ohio was a wonderful place in the 90s and 2000s to scoop up, really well-maintained vacation vehicles that never made it to the beach.
Right. Right. Yeah, man.
But that was it.
So it's just a line from that song.
That was it. I think that was probably our box suggestion.
Every Hour is $1
I'm just trying
gone.
to figure out what it is, and he's like, "It should be that line." I'm like, "Well, all right."
It's very cool.
And, I was like, I dig. I'm pretty sure we obviously Dan is the one that's really opened the world up to Junior Kimbrough, and so I know we were listening to that record.
That's such a great record, man.
Yeah. So that is, but it didn't work. It doesn't work. It only works once.
Yeah. You couldn't. No, you can't name your album.
You can't have a sentence on every record, Pat. Son of a bitch. It would be so easy. You just, grab a lyric. No, you only get to do it once. So
it's a great title.
Well,
also, the song itself, Them Shoes, the lyrics are kind of heavy. And to me, they talk about a lot of different things, like living in the past instead of the present, dealing with the harsh realities of life and having no choice in the matter, and maybe bad relationships. But I wanted to ask you what the song's about and what's the backstory to it.
Well, you kind of nailed it. I was just bouncing off. I was, divorced, living in, basically, living in the upstairs of my parents' house at this point, after being,
Right.
On my own for a while, but also, work at that point. I was working for a company that did like these kind of musical things in a couple of Cleveland inner city schools. Just hustling, gigging at night, gigging a lot, gigging solo, gigging with the band locally, trying to play shows, like just staying extremely, extremely busy and being very, very unhappy.
Yeah.
Kind of, trying to justify like, this thing, the worth of it. And, that, obviously, I could have I definitely, in retrospect, wish I'd had a healthier approach to dealing with all those feelings. But at least I got it on out of it. But that thing of like that sort of harsh reality of that, of like they're like, well, if this is it and this is the gig, well, then this is the gig, and I'm fine with that because roofing's hard, delivering the mail's hard, running, landscaping's hard. You get, nobody goes home from their landscaping gig and goes out and landscapes because they dig it.
No.
But shit, man, how many nights have I gotten home from the gig and picked up my guitar and played?
Yeah, right. That speaks a lot.
So you just, that's sort of the over thing of like, it's sort of, them shoes, sort of the keep on going, pal, the back, like you got this, whether I believed it or not at the time, that's the one nice thing about writing songs is to a point you can make yourself sound a lot cooler than you are. Now, if people figure out that you aren't being honest, though,
yeah, but I don't.
It's real bad.
I don't know. Yeah, but maybe you. Yeah, I don't think you're being duplicitous or untruthful. It seems like it was just like you were just talking about shit.
Yeah, which is usually the thing of just telling the story.
Yeah.
But, you never, that's the thing is you think about it more because I'm going to be honest. I worked on the riff for them shoes for a long time.
I would bet because it's a fucking amazing riff. That's like work.
But it wasn't in the set anymore. After the record, we're like, it just doesn't until people started asking till the phone of Pandora Radio being on, is it the Nokia phone or was it the Samsung phone? Where like the app thing started to happen, like at the beginning of that. No one gave a shit.
You're kidding. So after
so it was literally because the Black Keys started getting famous because that song was, associated with them,
connected to them. Yeah.
Like through the algorithm thing, which was all brand new. Now, mind you, the reason that my material, my catalog was available to what became the streaming service is because my manager, Rick Perrick, who's my manager today, he's my right hand man, truly the sole reason that I have any career. Rick Perrick, 9 Mile Records in Austin, Texas. It's because when we were going to put out the album Before Every Hour, and
you talking about the solo record?
I wanted to spend the money. We had $500.
Right.
I wanted to spend money on print ad and paste magazine so we look like we're the real thing. We look cool. Get some photos table like that. Like here's the album artwork. Be able to put this in there. A couple tracks were engineered by Dan, and then Jimbo Mathis. We did the rest of it down at Jimbo Mathis.
I had Jim on the show too. Jimbo on the show. He's a good guy.
I love Jimbo.
He's really a good guy.
So he produced that record. He just got in the room and played, and then he played with us on one song. But it was Will Dawson behind the desk. He was so we're like, we got to do, and both those guys were hot at the time. I thought that's what we're going to do. And Rick's like, man, I've got this offer that we can add our catalog and spend this money, which, I just don't see any. He said, like, these are the numbers. Like, you don't really see a return on print advertising.
You can't track it. That's the problem.
Can't track it. And he said, I don't think that it's the way that the marketing is going to go. I said, man, I'm just sorry. We got to look cool. We got to look cool to the people that want to listen to this. And he's like, we can do this thing. He said it was for an internet radio database. Remember internet radio?
So funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Internet radio database.
It sounds like they're inventing the internal combustion engine.
Yeah, right.
So he's like, I really think this is the right decision. And it's the only time Rick and I have really ever just been, no, man. Like I was like, no. And I was pissed that we didn't do the ad. And I was like, man, I don't know if this is going to work out. It's very early in our relationship. I don't know, doing this thing. And then it's literally the decision that has kept it's the reason the entire business still
That's cool.
remains. It's the absolute reason that I didn't stop making records in 2005.
So
Like
you didn't
because we didn't have to pay to get, we paid one-time fee, as all these streaming services and things start to develop, they need content. Our content is available to them in these libraries. Now people have to pay because of the ration demand for these types of services. They need content, and they need content people want. And because of we were in the algorithm, like people responded to the song, so it was all user thing. So we've never had to pay once.
So after you made that song,
to add to a playlist, to add to a service, to add any of that, we've other than any sort of, I guess, Rick, who really, he's the label, has been the label for that, and his business has changed where he's really more management, and his company 9 Mile is more of a management company. They'll put out some records, but really it's available to his artists as they need it in whatever form, sort of umbrella to, print up records, things like that, but his other clients. But I'm one of one of his first in our career, of sort of, we're married. But he's the guy he was the only guy that asked what I wanted to do, not what I'd already done. Let me ask you this. After that record,
once you made that record, you didn't think to yourself, shit, I think we got something here? It was just like business
I thought we got something, and we got a little bit of press, but we hit the road. But then it's
back to working,
back to just vain. It's just they're like, you got a little press, thing like that. People didn't really start listening to that record at all until more than 3 years.
That's
after
amazing.
It came out.
That's simple.
So nothing's happening. Burned through the talent pool. Moved to Nashville. Broke as hell, man. So broke. So broke. Thought I could, kind of maybe pick up a little gig here and there. Like no one gives a shit. Like every Pat Sweany in every town moved to Nashville 10 years before I did.
Right.
They're younger, better looking, and they know how to play covers and shit so they can work downtown. I don't know how to do that.
Right.
I don't learn fast enough. I don't have any musical education, and I'm just feeling as absolutely as just sort of as broke and terrified as I could be, and just trying to do anything, eventually, started at least being able to take some cats on the road. My friend Mike Grimes put us on some shows at the Basement, and people see that. So, but it was the first 2 years in Nashville, no one talked to me.
Yeah.
I tried to go to the old time bluegrass jam and just sort of get in there, and man, I got boxed out.
Wow. And you're a good, that's your thing, playing.
I could play fucking bluegrass rhythm guitar.
Yeah.
At the jam.
Yeah.
There, and I got fucking boxed out. It just crushed me, because I knew I wasn't being disrespectful or anything like that. I knew the etiquette. I just wanted to, but it was just Nashville's a different environment then, and I also didn't know that, the people I was coming up to were heavy hitters in that world, but I no more give a shit about them then than I do now.
Yeah, I was going to say that shouldn't matter,
They weren't being particularly mean or anything like that, but they're just yo, we got a thing going on, and this guy ain't.
You're not in it.
Ain't in, bud.
Yeah.
Close shop. So that was really, so I was just well, fuck this. I've got to figure out how to be the best me. I've got to do this thing. I've got to make another record. I've got to you know, I've got to do it, you know. So I, made another record. No one listened to it for 3 years again until, 3 or 5 years. And then, but at that point, but also at that point when we're making that record, the reason they were able to make that record is because of the streaming things, having a little bit of income, like 1 month, that first month, $300 came in. Like, it's a day of studio time.
Right.
Like, I can do this. And then, I got to check the next month, for, about $300. I'm like, well, shit, man. I got like a little part-time gig going here, and then, I roadied a little bit, for Hot Tuna.
Holy shit. Summer. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was really fun. I mean, I had to deal with the drummer they had at the time was definitely like a New York kind of a hitter dude, and wasn't great to work with as far as,
That's what was it? What was roadieing?
Because I was mostly in charge because I knew Yorma and Jack. I'd actually taught a couple sessions at Yorma guitar at his Guitar King.
Oh, Fur.
And I got to be friends with their production manager.
Oh, okay.
At the Fur Peace Ranch.
Fur Peace Ranch, right.
The Fur Peace Ranch in Southern Ohio. Taught a couple beginner classes, and I'd opened a show for John Hammond at their concert venue, and then Yorma's wife asked me if I did any teaching, and I didn't, but I said, yes, I do.
Yes, and of course. I teach all the time.
Never taught a lesson in my life.
Yeah.
But then they're like, wow, because we really need someone, next year to do some of the beginner stuff. And I said, well, that's great. I said, because I know how to do I can teach somebody the beginner stuff. I said, but like, I can't teach people like Gary Davis, like Yorma does. And they're like, no, we got plenty of those guys. We need, I'm like,
yeah.
So then, I had, a year sort of to develop kind of like, well, all right, Pat, how do you do what you do? Like, so yeah, I figured out how to kind of like the method. I'm like, oh man, this is it. I don't have any kind of musical education or anything like that. So, just learning, numbers of like, hey, the first is the 1 and the next one's the 4 and the 5, and that's your blues change, like that kind of thing. Not to get too wrapped up in that. Befriended Yorma, opened a couple shows for Hot Tuna, and also befriended him during those sessions. Jim Lauderdale has to have throat surgery. They need an opener in 8 days on the West Coast. Someone who's cool, who's Yorma Jack, clean and sober for decades. Need somebody who's not, knows how to behave, knows how to, they can work with. So I jumped on the bus, like hanging out with Hot friggin' Tuna, like they were doing, I think those were acoustic shows at the time. And man, it was great. So they were like, that was it. The following, I moved to Nashville. I was really, really broke. Paulie, their drum and bass tech, hired by Santana. They needed a guy. Like, man, I was really broke. I really hit their production manager up. I'm like, man, I really need a gig. If there's anything, they're like, okay, well, come on out. And I didn't know shit. Shit about the bass, and I damn sure didn't know shit about drums. And I got the gig, and I had to go over to my drummer, Adam Abershoff's house, and be like, dude, can you show me how to set up and tear down a drum kit?
Oh, so you were doing this, you were everybody's roadie.
Well, I was bass and drums.
Okay.
And then production manager was Yorma's guy, and he's, and he's, he's a luthier as well. So, he's doing all the tweaking, all that stuff, and running front of house for the most part, and, run the show. For the electric band, they needed another guy. Like, usually Myron, the production manager, he could handle it. But so with the band, you need another guy. And, yeah, and it was, but being bass tech for Jack Astley was really easy, because he would fix the intonation on his basses during the gig if it needed it. If he felt something was out of tune. I saw him do it on an acoustic gig in between songs with Yorma and him playing, where he gets an Allen wrench out of his little bag right next to him, detunes the whole bass, a hollow body bass, detunes the whole thing while Yorma does the little spiel about, selling their merch and, and And he looks over him and he's like, "What are you doing?" Jack goes, "Don't worry about it. Just keep talking." So,
Wow. I've seen him a few times.
And he did. He adjusted the truss rod, zinged it, checked the intonation, zinged it back down, turned the saddle with a little screwdriver he had next to him, tightened it back up, and nailed it on the downbeat.
Good to go. Yeah.
For Hesitation Blues.
Yeah, great song.
Right.
God, it's a really good song.
Nailed it. Like there. So like that. So like, Jack, that was cool. You know, mostly it was just, you know, being there to be like, okay, is everything cool? Like I worked from most of the summer and like he said, well, hey, when you check the intonation on the bass, I'm like, Jack, I'm never checked the intonation on your instruments. Never once. Just, you're not checking them before the show? And I said, you know, Myron's never done it either. Unless you asked, like any other time ever.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you've been working with this guy for 10 years. Like, you're just going to change it, you know?
Right.
Because he's so in tune with his instrument. Like him, Jack, and that bass are one thing. Like there. And so, anyway, that was my weird broke summer job. And
go back. Hold on a second. I want to go back to them shoes.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So
I was doing that before because the money from them shoes had not started happening yet.
Right. Okay.
So, you know, it was the really, you know, we printed up 1,000 albums, you know, it took, you know, over a year to sell them.
Oh my God, that must be torture.
Well, no, I mean, it just, you know, because you're playing shows, you know, I'm not selling store like maybe, you know, and then, you know, they really, you know, we had CDs. We still had CDs, but we didn't have vinyl, you know, like that. Like the vinyl ran out. We're like, oh, the vinyl's out, you know, and then we're still selling CDs if I'm playing some shows. But I'm not playing a lot of shows. I'm living in Nashville. I'm trying to, you know, I'm not playing any local shows, you know, and you know, trying to just do the little gigs here and there, you know. But so then them shoes starts happening, able to get some money going to make another record that nobody heard until years afterward.
Hold on.
I started getting reviews of that record 3 years after it came out. So strange.
Hold on, time out. I want to go back to the last question about them shoes.
Yeah.
Your guitar tone in there. How did you get that?
That is it's a brown Princeton, like an early 60s Princeton with a Radio Shack speaker in it, I think, you know, or whatever, you know. Crappy little speaker. And
just turned up.
And the room mic, the room mic that, you know, like it was mic close, you know, well, I mean, close about this far back, maybe a foot back. And I believe that was a ribbon mic. And then a room mic would have been about, I mean, the room mic, that almost the whole record, that whole song is mostly room mic and that guitar mic. So that would be, I guess it was about 10 feet back. So it just sounds huge.
And so it was just the breakup from that Princeton.
Yeah.
No pedals,
or
nothing.
anything like that.
I
Just
didn't
had
think
it
so.
cranked up, and, you know, it's a small little, you know, it probably wouldn't, you know, probably biased a little too high, you know, at the time. And so it had that breakup.
It's beautiful, man.
I believe the guitar was like a Les Paul copy made by Dean. I think it was the Dean Evo.
Wow.
I had an endorsement with Dean Guitars. They had a buddy who liked, you know, blues guy who was friends with my friend Roy Bookbinder, who messed up. And he's like, man, we're making this guitar, you know, I want to
They're
send you
down
one.
here, or they were. I think they're out of business now.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. That. I know some of the
they're here in town,
see
in
some of the
Tampa.
cats on there, like there, but they may be reforming.
It was like
strange.
Everybody was fighting, the whole family, you know. So
it seemed pretty weird.
It was weird.
Like, but you know, they all had, you know, the whole company's pointy shredder metal guitars. I'm the absolute not, you know, the opposite of that. But they had this, you know, basically like a, you know,
like a Leslie West. They kind of did something like that for Leslie West. They had a Les Paul.
Yeah.
It must have been similar to that.
Yeah, very, you know, close. But it was there, you know, it was a cool guitar, and you know, humbuckers. I think, you know, but you know, set kind of bright, kind of PAF-ish.
Yes,
maybe a little hotter than
sounded
that.
great. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I really, and that, you know, when you dig in, and that is, but there really is just that little, you know, small amps. Like all the records, I mean, all of them are either Ampeg Gemini 1, which is my first amplifier, still have sitting right over here in the corner, or that Brown Princeton. And then on the last record, those two and a Dan Electro Explorer, which is like a 15-inch speaker, Valco made, 18 watt, whatever. But yeah, always small amps cranked.
Yeah, they sound great
on the records.
They sound great.
Yeah, usually, and try to be in the room. Usually a room mic happening. That's because that's really is. When you hear them, when you hear these guitars sound big, like AC/DC's guitars sound big. That Marshall, that compressed Marshall thing. It's great. But it's a different animal. It's a totally different animal. But
sound.
This is more, very much more, of an older, kind of an older school 50s, 60s type sound. But
to me, that's like always the British Brown sound that you're getting. It's more closer to that. It's that warm.
Well, they call it the Brown because I'm using a Brown, like it's a Brown era amp. Like it's also like Billy Gibbons used a Brown Deluxe.
Okay.
Like you'd have the big, Marshalls and stuff like that. But there's a picture of I'm sorry, I can't see my hands. Like you'll have like the wall of Marshalls and stuff like that. But there's a picture of them, I think, in the late 70s. That there's the wall of Marshalls, and then but on the drum riser, there's this small Brown, Fender Deluxe mic'd up, cranked up all the way, and that's the sound. That's Billy Gibbons.
That's his sound.
That's the sound in the PA. Like you might be hearing like all that. The Marshalls may be pushing it, on stage, but what's in the PA is this little Brown amplifier. It's early 60s Fender. Cranked.
Sounds phenomenal, though.
It's my fave.
I want to ask you about a couple more songs.
Oh, sure.
You got a song called Rising Tide from that old Southern drag. Again, I don't
that
usually,
one.
Hang on a second. I don't usually talk about album names or covers, but I love that album cover because like I'm an old school guy. Like I want to see a blonde woman in a pair of jeans. That's that's to me, like, I don't care about like, I know I sound really old, everybody's got like lips and like Botox and I don't give a shit about that. I expect 50-year-old women or 40-year-old women to look like 50 and 40-year-old women, but like, I'd like to see how you look in a pair of jeans. And if you're blonde, that's like a home run because I grew up in the Bronx and there was none, so it was almost like, what do blondes look like? Blue eyes. What is that?
Oh, that's great.
So who's the lady on that record? Like, how did that whole?
It's a model friend of the folks, of my friends that did the layout. They call Horse with No Name Photo, but Julie Ruiz and Martin Glenn, friends of mine that live, from New York. They're
great photo.
Grew up with my wife Missy, and they were like, we just talked about like that, like these classic albums and like that thing. So yeah, we hired her and had them take photos.
It's not like a risque photo. It's not a sexy. It's just wow. That's just like,
I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to make it like, like Herb Albert, like that, like that kind of thing of, where it's, that would be super cool. But, you do any provocative photo, you either look like, Poison or, you're aping Herb Albert.
But like that was such a cool, it just looked natural. It was a great cover, man. I really like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was so freaking cool. And then talk about that track Rising Tide. I thought the melody on that track was really cool, very driving, and it felt like it was about the insecurities of being in the music business. But you tell me what the backstory.
Well, it very much is. It very much that being being insecure.
Yeah.
Of just trying to confront that and being like, you got to do this thing despite, you ain't a kid, you ain't the up and comer, you're adult, you're supposed to be doing good things. You're supposed to be playing by the rules of the game. There's no, why aren't you,
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing. But also like that, it's funny you respond because like now people I think are finding that song and like that. But again, it's one of the only songs I felt like, maybe it was a little forced.
In what
Because,
way?
we're starting, the reason that we're able to record those songs because of Them Shoes, and Them Shoes is a little different than the other songs on the record, the record that it's on.
Right.
And using that open D tuning with the big octave riff and stuff, and me really trying to force like to write another Them Shoes or something like that. But then I'm like, man, there's a lot of soul songs. I'm singing in a very, in more of my baritone range. But, people just didn't respond to that song at all.
Really?
No,
I love it. I think
never really played it live. Never,
I think it's a great track.
Maybe once or twice. But it just didn't. For whatever reason, it just was one of those. It just sort of there. And I don't mean, like, they're all your babies.
Yeah, but I get
every song is your babies like
sure.
that. But just like that was something that, like there. And it's funny though. I get guys like I'll have people, that have heard that song and respond to that song, and they really dig it.
It's a great song. Yeah,
just I've always, and I've never, I just haven't thought about it.
Yeah,
because it wasn't one of the ones that were playing in the set. You know? Like it's, there's other songs fill in there. We got, and that just one sort of like that. But I mean, it is kind of cool, But I definitely, tried to write it a lot of different ways. And, the way it grooved or the way it is or where the solo kind of was. And I remember it being sort of, when we recorded, we're just sort of like, well,
are you good about like enough is enough when you're recording? Like, cause, it's easy
I used to think so. I don't know anymore.
Well, it's so easy to second guess yourself. Cause like, right. It's much easier to evaluate someone else's music.
Very much so. I mean, I think I'm very, once I'm there, I realize I can kind of look at things, but still I'm doing that right now. We just recorded, 4 tracks last week. Maybe a new record, maybe the start of a new record.
Right.
But let's do it and kind of hear them like, is that the thing? Does it stack up against the rest of the catalog, which is now something, I really have to consider.
That's a difficult one, man.
And especially, like question. Being in the position, I definitely let, that sort of thing get inside your head. Once you do that, you can't compete if you're competing with yourself.
Yeah. You know what I do, man?
And then, what's that? I'm sorry.
You know what I started doing about 10 years ago is, I look at my own shit like it's not mine. Like, because I was a consultant for many, many years and I had no problem helping other people. And I said, why don't I just pretend I'm not me? I'm dealing with a client's issue. And it became much easier because it like pulled me out of me. Like so I approached it like, okay, if someone came to me with this, whether it's a business situation or a life challenge, like what would I tell them? And it became a little easier when I did that. Because if I look at myself, it's like not easy.
That's interesting. Because also, just trying to get, to write, songs coming out of the pandemic, and I feel like really the last record came out in 2017. The real nationwide tour, where you're doing 3-4 weeks on the road, doing West Coast, doing South by, and then doing club shows in the Midwest on the way home, like that got chomped by there. So that was sort of the end of the promotional cycle of where we were really going to be like people actually caught up and heard the record really coming out to shows. And then all that sort of stopped. Well, it didn't sort of stop. It all stopped.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to, but that working for that record is done. So you've got to have new product. And the real challenge was, the songs I wrote during that time, like one, just the pandemic was not a creative time. It was stressful. It was, it was very depressive.
It's awful.
Very, very, I struggled a lot with depression. And then coming out of that and trying to like, well, I'm just going to make this, record on the tape machine at home. I'm going to do this and piece by piece and like other people are doing. everyone else is doing it, and realized I had no unique insight to any of what was going on in my life and the things I would write about, or that's, or just trying to illustrate, things like that. I was like, I don't have anything unique to say. Nothing I'm saying that's better or interesting, So I have these songs that are just sort of like, oh, there's some cool words in there, and it's got a little catchy thing there, but it's just not. It's not the thing. And to have to you put all your energy and as much you can into it, and you get 11 songs together and realize no one is going to hear this.
Wow.
You don't want people to hear this. You don't want to put out something that isn't up to snuff. So then it's gone.
But isn't that
start
common though?
Over. And I've never had to do that before.
Oh, because I hear a lot of times.
I have some things that are in the can. I'm like, that ain't it, this session like that. But I mean, an entire record where you think this is going to be my way forward. This is going to be the thing. And it's like, this isn't good. These are some okay demos, but the process isn't complete.
Right.
Know?
So how do you deal with that?
There isn't a great performance here.
So how do you deal with that?
I'm dealing with it now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm in the middle of it. Like I've got, we took a day, and I was real lucky. JD Simo has a little home studio. He's been doing some records down there, making it like there. So hired my buds, that are in my side project, Super Felon, which is a band like a funk, my middle-aged white guy funk cover band. That's maybe the best band I've ever been in. And we call it Super Felon.
Who's in that?
It's JD Simo on guitar, Ted Pecchio on bass, Robbie Kroll on keys and sax, Adam Abrashoff on drums, and me. And we play a bunch of meters, like Haze, Funkadelic, Clarence Carter, like real like 60s, 70s soul and funk. And, we kind of go out, do a psych, things go. Those guys went over to JD's house and we cut 4 songs, just get through them. Now I'm listening to them and seeing like, man, what is the thing? Like we're getting some good. They're there. These songs are there. These are good songs. These songs are telling a story. But now I'm like, well, do they, kind of focused on, I've told the story. And then when the story's over, we stop. Like I've got to get, you've got to find the hook, the riff thing. So that's where I'm at now. I think I'm onto it.
Yeah.
But, I didn't know it was going to, start working until it did it.
Right.
And
God, it sounds painful.
Well, it's liver in the mail, I mean, like
I saw this thing.
It is as far as like being a summer, this is what these things are about. You kind of get to the personal parts, and it is, just me feeling like, having a point where you're like, I don't have anything to say. Like that's there's nothing I can say that's worth saying.
Right.
And whether that's, more the depressive thing coming in, or maybe, like it isn't it, but it also, the way out, after shit canning, that little record, I thought I was going to make, or maybe I was going to go to a friend and maybe have him, remix it. My friend Dex Green. And he's like, well, man, come over and maybe, we can kind of collaborate things. And I realized, man, like, I might not be a collaborator. And to know that, I'm like, man, I'm really not comfortable sharing this shit with other people.
Interesting.
Like, being like, if it's going to be the Pat Sweany album and it's going to be,
you want full responsibility.
Like, yeah, I gotta do I gotta do it all.
I understand.
I gotta tell it. And ain't nobody else, like, because you start something and you got to finish it. And I started it this way. And it's the reason that it works.
Right.
Now if I do stuff with other people, it's got to be called something else, but it can't be called Patrick Sweany.
Okay. So you answered a question because you had the Pat Sweany band originally. Okay. And I was curious.
Yeah. Well, that was just because I was, I was playing solo gigs and wanted to differentiate between my, solo record and then there. But then it's also like the Dave Matthews Band, all these jam bands started adding band to the last name. So it
was just a thing.
Probably talked to our he's like, he said, man, just do it under your name, you know, and just do what you do.
Yeah.
Like you don't want, people to think you're some hippie or something, which I 100% agreed with.
Some hippie.
So that's it. So it wasn't, wasn't any sort of creative thing. It wasn't like someone else was getting more of a creative voice from the organization.
I want to ask you about one more track.
Yes.
Pat, Get That Feeling Volume 1, which is like an EP of remixes you did. You got a track on there called One Thing.
I did not write that song.
You're kidding me.
That is an Isaac Alexander song, who is this phenomenal
writer,
but from Little Rock, Arkansas. He's not a famous guy, like that. But God, so Joe McMahon produced his record, and I heard the song, and it just blew. And I played guitar on the song.
Oh, okay.
Isaac Alexander. The album's called Anti-Venom Suite, and the song's called One Thing. And I've loved that song, and I wanted to cover it. And so we had the opportunity that we were down in Austin at the Greyhound studio, Bud's recording, and was just reimagining the catalog while I had the road band with me. And we had a week, like a couple of days off in midweek in Austin. And so we went and recorded a couple of days and just went through, didn't pre-production, nothing, just went in like, hey, we're going to try this song, try it a different way, try this groove. I'm like, man, I really want to try this Isaac Alexander song. And we do it, and it's like in 12/8. And the song is straight up 4/4, so like we changed the feel. We might have taken out a lyric, but I think it's one. I love that song.
It's a really good song.
So much. And that's just a song like, we don't do covers. But man, that song, it's like there's just the lyrics. It says, "They're so
trying to find
simple.
The truth." Just trying to find the truth. I
found
that.
a lie in a joke.
What? How did you record your vocals? Was that like just reverb, because they were like haunting, very like echo like?
Well, there was. I know there was some. We definitely really verbed out. I think the verb on that was probably room verb. We just put a mic at one end and speaker in outside of the studio, but it might have been a plate reverb. But we also sort of layered some harmonies in there on that. But I think the vocal mic, one of these guys, this is a EV635, which is like the pizza of mics. I just have a little piece of gaffer tape in it on it,
funny.
But you see, it looks like that. But these are, I think they're like $150. Like you can find. They've been making them for years and years and years and years. The new ones are exactly the same as the old ones, like that. And they're a great room mic. They're a great drum overhead. I like them on acoustic guitar a lot. My friend Mickey loves them on guitar amps about a foot back. But I like it's a dynamic mic. Not real high output, but I know we were singing into one of these. I do know that.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's fun, but it's like,
really
but also, it's the song.
Yeah.
Like, and also when we do it, I tried to imagine Bobby Blue Bland singing it.
Okay.
Like, I love his music. He's my desert island. His Two Steps from the Blues is my desert island disc. Like, which is really hard for me to say, but that's the one that has it all. But when, you're hitting that note, that trying, being able to hit that sort of the almost, going to the falsetto and then back. Like, it's just that's a testament to Isaac's song.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Really nice song.
Oh, man, he's a very, very interesting artist.
I'm going to check him out.
Oh, you
Isaac
really can't recommend it enough. He has a bunch of bands too, like that. He's, his full days, commercial graphic design, I think is what his main gig was, or for like, advertising, things like that. And, but he's just this devastating writer. And he has, this is what his other bands are called. I'm sorry.
Is he playing an instrument or is he just sing?
He was a guitar player, piano player,
yeah.
singer. You know, mostly live. He's playing guitar and the keyboard. But you know, he wrote. You know, he wrote one thing. I know he was playing piano on it. But yeah, you know, sort of the Joe McMahon connection that's how I found out about Isaac. And yeah, the only cover we've ever really done on record.
Yeah, that's
Isaac
pretty
Alexander
cool
song, and it's, you know, those lyrics are so heavy. I could talk about it all day.
Yeah, they were good.
You know, once there was a plan that we used to know. You know, like how to get from A to B, how to get back home. Like, you know, that sort of thing is like, you know, a relationship falling apart, you know, like that, like that thing. I mean, you couldn't, I'm a big fan of the American short story, you know, all those writers like Ray Carver, you know, all the way back to Hemingway, like, you know, Carver, that era of, you know, well, all that of where Ray Carver being, I think, my guy, because, you know, just if there was action, that action was so important and you saw it coming and it was like a bomb going off if, you know, somebody walked across the room because it meant this thing. And I really feel like Isaac's writing is that level of where he, you know, just tells that story, you know, especially
check him out.
Yeah. Anyway, this is about me.
It's about
you.
Enough
about him.
Enough about
he ain't paying my bills.
That's right. And unfortunately, neither am I, Patrick.
That makes three of us.
Hey man, tell me some low points. Tell me low points or dark periods you've had to deal with and how'd you get through them?
Man, that's, you know, I mean, you just end up on the other side of them is really like thing, you know, like, I mean, there's like career wise, you know, it's always been, you know, the same. It's always been a lot of work or anything like that. You know, you feel like, you know, low point, you know, the first couple of years in Nashville, pretty big low point.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, all like career shit sort of pales into like the personal shit, you know, like the first year of our marriage, you know, my wife, lost her younger brother and sister 6 months apart. You know, and yeah, it's horrible. And what that does to a family and what that does, you know, to a person to experience that kind of trauma, you know, like that's
a lot.
It's a long way getting out, especially if you don't have any experience in doing that, you know, next day comes, you know, you get, you know, you just kind of work through it when it gets to a head, you know, and, you know, you get, you know, like, I wish, you know, how not to be mad at those kids.
What kids?
Excuse me.
It's all right.
Well, no, the brother and sister, just, you know, by dying, you know, they fucked up my thing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like they hurt, you know, by being gone, you know, they hurt my wife and I couldn't defend her from that.
Sorry, man.
And that was, yeah, that ain't, you know, it was, you know, no man, you know, you're, you know, when you do a child's hobby as your vocation, you know, you get to feel like, you know, you're getting past some imposter shit. But when you got to deal with a real thing that you can't fix or, you know, that a gig isn't going to do, you know, you look for ways out and not, you know, being pissed at dead people is never going to be, you know, something.
It's not going to fix your problem.
Work out for you. Yeah. But, you know, I didn't know how to deal with any of it, you know.
Sorry, man.
So I appreciate that. But I mean, like if we're going to go low points, man, we're going to be real. There it was, you know, of that. And then you just, you know, you're supposed to go, you know, and then how that affects a family and how that affects how a family relates to each other and just trying to, like, you know, where everything gets broken. Like, that's tough. And, you know, and then being broke and, you know, my wife having to work constantly, you know, and like, that's rough, you know, it's hard to make it through. A lot of people don't.
Financial destroys most relationships, man.
Yeah, and especially when someone's doing, like my wife really, she's kind of a Nashville success story. She busted ass, took, whatever job she can get, and just, was able to work through that to make sure that, like she's legit. And now, we're lucky she has a good job. I mean, but, she works a lot, 80-hour week it happens, that's it, but, that's it, low, my mom, her health, failing, over the last, 7-8 years. And then, the last 5 of her life, all, during the pandemic, like that's a rough way to go. That made things really tough.
I feel for your dad.
And
I can't imagine.
like enough that, what's that?
Well, I'm assuming they were together a really long time, and I feel for your dad.
Yeah, dad. And then, also, what are we going to do with dad? But that's
right.
Of this gen, my gen. I mean, the human lifespan is so long, and this is something that all of us are going to deal with.
Yeah.
And like that's, or if you haven't gone through it all, already, like that was a thing. And, coming out of COVID, there definitely, I definitely felt like the first time I got COVID, I didn't know I had it, but I just got like that. It never really happened before. Like that. My wife had COVID. She was upstairs sick, hard isolation, pre-vaccine. And I just sat there and cried all day.
Wow.
Like, all day. And like, I'm like, man, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah.
Like, and that, and then, I didn't know I had, like I said, I didn't know I had it. I just had, I got a couple mild chills. I was worried about my wife, but, wasn't sleeping on an air mattress downstairs. So, I'm like, I'm not resting real great anyway.
Right.
Like, that's the thing. But then, I just seemed a lot more susceptible to that depressive thing since that time. And then, with mom, her health failing, and, they're 80, my dad's, they're late 70s and 80s, like that, it's tough anyway, but it definitely strained things, as far as being able to take care of them and be, to do that, again, with, no money coming in, and, hair started falling out. Like I developed, they say, and luckily, through my wife's gig, I have health insurance. I was able to go to a dermatologist and said, you have, alopecia parte. So I lost a section of my mustache. I thought, I lost like parts of my beard, like just ball, like, then side of my head, top of my head, front of my head here, this part here, just like, and sort of was random, like, like all these like just pure bald things. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
from stress.
They say from the stress, they said an autoimmune response. You said, if it, they said from the stress, they said, but, we're seeing more of it from people who've had COVID.
Yeah,
both
that
vaccinated
was
and unvaccinated.
Yeah.
And they're like, really weren't comfortable saying that, because I live in Tennessee, but that was just like,
Isn't Tennessee mixed though? It's like half and half. Everything is fucking associated with like a political stance now. It's really,
yeah, man,
it's really like not cool. Like you can't just have an opinion, because it seems like if you have an opinion, it means, oh, you're one of them. Like, well, first of all, what if you are one of them? Who gives a shit? It's like none of your business. I don't know. I don't really
It never
care.
used to be.
I know, man. I never thought about anything like this when I was younger. Like, I never cared, and I still don't. It's none of my business how like someone votes, thinks. I don't really, honestly, I don't give a fuck. Not out of rudeness, but it's none of my business. It's like I don't give a shit what color socks they like wearing either. Like why would I make that my business? I don't understand any of it.
I've always been said, hey, listen, man, I'm as go lefty commie as it gets. So I hope that doesn't affect,
No, I don't care.
I don't think you should care because I don't. you know, like that, like when I, you know, and that was always a thing of like, but you know, like I'm just, you know, like, oh, you know, like that kind of thing. I'm like, man, you know, I'm just, you know, I'm that way, you know, and that I don't care what you do. I know how I feel. My experiences lead me to believe these things. This is it.
And that's fine.
But anyway, I don't want to get on theirs, but also just that, you know, like definitely, and we can, you know, the world seeing Tennessee, our legislature is, we're being used as the bad example all over the world of like, you know, just regressive, you know, like, you know, that, you know, like our governor's kids, like, you know, our governor's, like, you know, friends, kids got killed, you know, in that school shooting. And, you know,
oh shit.
Yeah, the Covenant School, like he knows those people, like, and they besieged him to put, you know, a little, you know, some regulation, and none of it happened, man. Nothing. They're not doing anything. You know, they're trying to, you know, outlaw protesting and things like that. You know, they like that kind of, you know, there is really regressive, you know, politics here, very super duper, you know, right wing, you know, kind of thing here in Tennessee. So that's why I'm saying my doctor was probably uncomfortable saying vaccinated or unvaccinated, of like what was happening to me was happening to other people.
Okay.
Like they're post-COVID.
Right.
Like there. Now, mind you, it was definitely stress that triggered it. And
you
know, that those stressors started happening. I mean, like I've, you know, I had to buy hats. Like I couldn't go out in public without looking like a sick guy.
Right. Well, if you had patches,
like I looked weird. Like, and I thought, should I shave my head?
Dude,
and
it works.
The doctor said, don't do it yet. Let's see how it responds to treatment, so you're just not starting from zero.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, which was very wise. And, you know, and they gave, you know, some like topical, like steroid kind of things. And, you know, I started taking the collagen vitamins, you know, like that, which, man, for a guitar player, can't recommend enough. Like I've always had the softest nails, like my nails just tear like that. I started taking that stuff, man, practice all the time with bare finger. Like I always wear, like, I don't realize I'm wearing finger picks all the time. The collagen vitamins, whatever, biotin or whatever they're marketed under, do it. Like if you're a guitar player, it's so great. Like my whole career, I've just never, like if I played, you know, finger style without the picks on, you know, my nails just, you know, they just tear, you know, they just would, you know.
And the collagen strengthen them.
Oh man. Like there. And also, you know, grew my hair back. Like it grew back white. Like all those parts grew back white, and then it grew back the regular color.
Yeah. Dude, you had an awesome head of hair.
Now all the gray stuff stayed gray.
Wow.
I was really thought
you're not going to
get the new paint job.
Do-over.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't white, you know.
Everything's cool now, though?
Yeah, man.
Good.
Like it did, you know, but also, you know, things stabilized, you know, like I got dad's care of, and, you know, things are good, you know. We got that, you know, just all in, you know, in that great unknown. So those are the challenge, like, you know, all that career challenges of, you know, just seems like, you know, pissing and moaning because like nobody asked me to do what I do.
Yeah.
You know, not once. They're like, oh man, you got to do this, you know.
Right.
Like anytime I got hired, they were like, well, man, just go get a fucking gig.
Yeah.
You know, like go do something else. Like
which is hard.
You know, which I just couldn't ever even imagine doing anything else. I'm this, you know. So those problems seem very, very small compared to the things that just happen in life as, you know, as an adult ages.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't mean to get over emotional there, but this is the way it is.
That's fine, man.
If we're going to be real, we're real.
Man.
You can leave it in.
Keeping shit real.
Makes no difference. Yeah, it makes no difference to me.
No. That was fine,
you know,
man. You don't need to apologize for being yourself.
I just don't want to make it uncomfortable, so we don't get to really talk about what we.
No, it's cool,
the good
man.
stuff too. Well, cool.
Let's talk about. You mentioned your finger pick. So I've seen you play finger and thumb pick, sort of like Freddie King style, but with the extra pick in the middle finger.
Yes.
That's
the way my father plays, and that's the way I just learned to play. And again, I needed to use a thumb pick and finger picks because I didn't, my nails were never strong enough until now.
Until now.
Where mostly at home, I practice without them,
Okay.
or even the thumb pick just to kind of get to it. But I found this really cool, about 20 years ago, luthier named Roger Thurman turned me on to these last finger picks, and they have tape on them.
Yeah.
At
So
the
they
moment,
come
like
with.
there, but let me. No, I did that. Let me get one to.
Yeah, man.
I'll pull the tape off here, but they sort of slide on like a fake nail, and you can kind of trim them and file them to where, the way they fit.
You can file those.
Yeah. And they have a little tip, but here,
just Alaska finger picks. You go on Amazon, you look up Alaska
picks. Yeah, you can order them. And I was using the plastic one. They make a plastic one. Okay, so see if you can see that.
Yeah.
How? Okay.
Okay, so that's the finger pick.
Yeah, and it slides on like so. And now you might not be able to see.
Yeah, I think I could see it. Sure.
There's little tabs that I've trimmed away that sort of add a little more tensile strength, but I have it so it really kind of slips under sort of the lip of your fingernail. So right when you start, it's pretty uncomfortable. But I have a brass fingernail, so I can do that Lightning Hopkins, Freddie King tone. So that old time metal finger, but I also have the skin.
So you can
really, and it makes such a huge difference in the way you can approach the tone and of your guitar by just adjusting the attack, whether you're using more skin on your finger or more of the pick. And I can't live without them, so I have them, I buy them and I stash them in every case.
Yeah.
Like, I have my bag they're always ready to go. And, but having the electrical tape on, just makes it easier, to keep them all down and having to bend them back and forth, add a little just tackiness to it. And also if, because of the brass, I like to cover up where, I made the cuts or filed just in case they get a little sharp.
So you put the tape right around
up. Yeah, just laying there, but not real tight, like that, just enough to kind of just give it a little tackiness. So like when you're sweaty, it's a hot club gig, But one thing I started taping because there's where I trimmed them a little bit, it was still sharp. And I didn't, and man, like opened up my forehead like Randy Macho Man Savage. Like,
yeah, that
you're
probably
on a gig and you're like, like that. And just nicked it enough. And I'm like, man, it's hot as hell. And then I'm like, I've got blood all over me. And I'm just like, son of a bitch.
Holy shit.
Like, just about to start. So I'm just like, how bad does this look? Cause you're like,
Yeah.
Like,
okay, so
turned out pretty bitchin'. It looked pretty bitchin'. But like, then you start sweating into it, so you're like, kind of stinks.
It burns. Yeah.
Like there, and you're just wiping more blood around, so it looks worse. Because it was a very small cut, but just like your blood's pumping, you're yelling, hollering, and singing, and
so you put the tape around just to anchor it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's it. Just to kind of, just to sort of anchor it. Like you don't really need it, but it does help.
And it's electrical tape?
Because I can windmills. I can do windmills and they won't fly off.
And it's electrical tape or just any duct tape?
Yeah, I just use electrical tape. I get the package from Harbor Freight.
Yeah.
And I just have, I either take like an X-Acto knife and just cut the roll in half.
Right.
Or if I'm at my dad's, he'll just take the whole roll and he'll put it on a lathe and it attaches the blade and he'll just, bring it down on the blade and cut them into threes. So whenever I'm home, I'm just like, hey dad, cut me up another batch,
That's so
it's
funny.
the Harbor Freight, $2 thing. And it's enough tape, finger pick tape for a decade.
Yeah.
At the decade,
I think I'm going to try that because I'd love to.
Oh man, I'll send you a link.
I love
like they make a plastic one too. That's really great.
Well, I wouldn't use the thumb pick. I would just use the finger pick because I like using my thumb, but I can't.
Yeah.
I want to get that Freddie King sort of shit going. And
Well, also, I mean, just throwing one, I think Hound Dog Taylor played with just one finger pick and then played with his thumb. But yeah, but these are cool.
Okay.
Because you can still get the skin of your finger, involved in it and like that. But then being able to have like just that little bit of attack on the back end is, it's my whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a one-trick pony, so I got to
but it
put
works.
A lot of costumes on the pony.
It works, man. What's your go-to guitar?
It really depends on writing songs, like recording acoustic. I have a 1958 Gibson J45.
Wow.
It's just a perfect acoustic guitar. Yeah. And it was my first, like, after I wore out, my first real guitar was an Alvarez Rosewood, I think. Great guitar. I bought the J45 and, worked summer at the golf course and saved up, spent $850.
Wow.
In 1994.
What's that guitar worth now?
Played,
God,
I don't, it's like, I just found out like a couple months ago that they're over $3,000 now. And I'm just like, son of a bitch. Like, I mean, I retired it. Like, I had it in the car on one of those very first tours I ever did. And while I was taking the luggage, took the guitars down to the van and was going back to get the luggage. Someone busted in the van, went in the back where the guitars and all the stuff was, dumped out my dirty laundry on top of it, just grabbed the Discman and the CDs, which, were CDs of country blues from the 20s and 30s. So
yeah, but they didn't grab your guitar, man.
To any punch up, I'm just gonna be like, what what is this?
Yeah.
No, that you might have got $10 for the Discman.
Yeah.
But I came down to the car and saw the window bashed out. I'm just like, oh my God. And I was opening for another act, and their custom shop guitars were in the van at the same time next to my two old Gibsons. I had a Gibson, the J45, and I had a Gibson 125 in there, and they left them.
It had to be some crackhead.
So I went home and I got back to Arkansas and I bought this guitar. It's a Guild D4. And like, I've been playing it ever since, but it didn't fit in the case. So I had to cut the top of the headstock off.
So funny. That is a one-off.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this was just I got in them shoes tuning, but it was $400, and it was, it's a great.
That's a first on the show. Cut the head off of the headstock. It's like that is a first, man.
I had a luthier friend with me. I was like, hey, I need to do this. I've got some fly dates. I would need it to fit in this case to fit in the overhead. And he's like, just get a different case. I said, but it said it'll be too long for the overhead. And I'm like, what kind of saw should I use? He's just like, man, just bring it over. Don't tell anyone.
That's so funny,
that
man.
I did it.
That's hilarious. I have never seen that.
Isn't that fun?
What's your number?
Tools.
What's your number one electric?
My number one electric. Well, the one that's been the secret. Well, there's. Okay. Well, I just have
secret weapon.
Well, the secret weapon on all the records has been this Epiphone Riviera. It's this one.
With mini humbuckers?
It had full-size humbuckers when I got it.
Okay.
And they weren't very good. At the time, I've replaced the pickups in it, but I bought this. This is it. It's an Epiphone Riviera. It's Korean made. I think it's a 95 or 96.
Okay. Is that hollow or semi-hollow?
Semi-hollow.
Okay, that's what I thought. And what'd you put in there? What pickups?
I'm not sure I traded Joe McMahon a Premier amp for this back pickup, which is sort of like a PAF.
That's so funny. Yeah.
Fairly low output.
Right.
I don't know who makes it though.
Okay.
And this was, I think it's just a Gibson PAF.
Okay.
whatever their modern version of the PA.
Maybe a classic 57 or something.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But this has been on every record. And it's the one, it's also wired out of phase. So like the Peter Green kind of thing.
Who did that?
So what's that?
Who did that? Who wired it out of phase? Did you do that yourself?
This particular one, I think it was probably Dan Johnson.
Oh,
it might have been, maybe it was Pat Cahill, but it's always been.
That's wild.
Like that's the thing. I always like that T-Bone Walker kind of thing, that quacky kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's sort of been like a little tone secret of mine. Having the guitar out of phase, and I dial the amount of phase. Like, I'm sorry, I can't see it on camera, but when it's out of phase, the pickups work sort of against each other. So it gets it gets real mid-rangey and quacky. And
so you keep it in the center position most of the time.
I keep it in the center position.
Yeah.
So you can adjust the tone and the volume. So it's, it's less in phase, and you pick up more of the front pickup and it becomes a little more robust, but still has this it still has this cut, even if it's not cranked. Or you can back this one off and kind of, or when you do it, completely out of phase, it has this really interesting, almost cocked wah kind of sound.
Right.
Like, but it tends to be very bright, very mid-rangey. So, you do a lot of, sort of tweaking with the tone knobs. But that has been the thing, like, especially going from, because I'm a fingerstyle player, I'm always playing rhythm and then playing lead, or going to a lead thing. So instead of having to like switch something or stomp on a pedal, I just grab one of the volumes and just notch it up one, and it knocks it in phase enough that you get just a bit of a volume boost without changing the tone too much, but able to get it to cut through. Like an example of that, like After a While on Every Hour Is a Dollar Gone.
Okay.
It's probably the best example of this really like raunchy sounding guitar that's got this crazy kind of mid-range thing. That's out of phase, but it's been this guitar, this Korean Epiphone that I bought off of Mike Lenz from Northeast Ohio.
Dude, give me your top
lesson learned.
Give me your top 3 CDs. You said Bobby Blue Bland, Two Steps is one of them.
Ooh, Two Steps from the Blues, Bobby Blue Bland. That's the other one, because like that has like, it's hard not to just say other Bobby Blue Bland. But I mean, there's so many great things of like that. I mean, like I think where blue, like really hard blues singing meets soul meets rock and roll meets R&B. Like Bobby has all of that, and he's just one of the most expressive singers of all time. There's one, the greatest guitar players in blues and R&B are on his records, whether Wayne Bennett or Clarence Holloman. All those are just virtuosos. Always the best band. And to find something that's that just sonic is so hard for me to choose. Like what would be the other two? I mean, I could say that, man, there's Dave Van Ronk's Gambler's Blues. Like that was the first blues type picking of like, in singing. I thought like, oh shit, I might be able to like do something like this. But that's, that's the little kid thing, I mean, hearing Physical Graffiti for the first time, Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti is like
pretty intense.
That's a rock album that has absolutely everything.
Yeah.
And it's not even really a record. So you think, oh, okay, is it Led Zeppelin 4? Is that the thing where they know where virtuosity meets, emotion meets, execution.
All those records were so great.
All those things. I mean, there's so many of that, like, but, I never, was never motivated to go out and, and really learn Jimmy Page stuff. That was just like, I love the way this sounds. I have no idea how to approach any of that.
Sure.
Not,
but you got your own unique style, which is pretty cool.
Well, but because it was just listening to one type of music for so long I was on Blues Island for, self-imposed exile on Blues Island that,
exile.
Like, because I didn't, it was like, I never saw anyone else pull it off. There was one guy, in town that like, he could play he was a really great guitar player, and he could play Eddie Van Halen style stuff. He could play Eruption, and he had an amp that that had distortion on it, and I heard that thing because my only amp at the time, by then I'd probably bought the Ampeg Gemini, and because old tube amps, nobody wanted them. They were cheap, so I knew what a small tube amp sounded like, turned up. And when I cranked it up all the way, and my dad had this Newcomb record player that he got out of when he was teaching. They were throwing it out, and he just put a 1/4-inch jack on it instead of the microphone, where the microphone input is. And that was it, And he got an electric guitar from a student, for $15 that he was like, well, man, you got to move the bridge. He goes, man, I'm just going to get a different guitar. And he's like, and he said, well, what do you want for it? And he goes, give me $10. Here's 15.
Right.
And so we had an electric. I could, hear how that sounded, and I could get that to feed back. So I'm like, wow, that's like sexy lady.
Yeah.
There. So I kind of knew what I wanted to hear, and it wasn't, the Gorilla amp, with, the built-in distortion. So that, I don't know, man. It's hard to tell what the other records I could really say, because there's hundreds of them. I could say, Howlin' Wolf's The Real Folk Blues, that album, that compilation, which is just a compilation of singles. That was a big change, hearing a voice like that.
Yeah.
And that
there's a good movie about him online. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like a 5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like 5 parts.
I've seen all the Howlin' Wolf docs.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Because there's no one like him.
Yeah.
There were some early guys, but that voice, that thing, and his singing, huge thing, and learning how to sing like that. We do a lot of Howlin' Wolf in my band, the Tiger Beats, which is no Pat Sweany music, all old school 50s and 60s blues and R&B. With just and it's a killer band, just absolutely killer band. But there's no pedals, there's no rocking, no shredding, no funking. It's all just in that body. We color inside the lines, and we do a lot of Wolf. And it took a long time. I mean, I admired him, and definitely strained my voice a bunch of times.
I was gonna say, you got a
trying to sing like
voice
that.
to
And
do
I
that.
Finally got to see video of him, and was able to work on how to, how he had control over that. Now his speaking voice sounded like that. But, okay, there's another record, Tom Waits Mule Variations. That was a life-changing record, that's, of just sonically of where can things go? That definitely would be one. That's sort of an influence. I didn't even realize it until a lot later.
Well, when you sang, the vocals there's a lot in common there.
Yeah. And so that thing of taking that Howlin' Wolf style, because, we all take things from guitar players and other instruments, like that. And to take things from my approach would always take that, distinctive singers have distinctive things they do. And to absorb that style, you have to study those things, and you have to, try and fail, just like the guitar stuff, Well,
so, you've got you're, like I said in the intro, man, you've got a great voice. You use it really, really well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. But I probably practice singing more than especially now, more singing than guitar playing.
Well, I'm not surprised. You can't be good at something you don't practice.
Or at least as much, because, well, it's a thing. No one cares. You hear somebody singing out of tune, nobody gives a shit about how good the guitar player is anymore. Oh, yeah. They just want it to be over.
Yeah. Very true.
If you clam one, it's they're like, you immediately, you can hit a wrong note on the guitar and no one gives a shit. You sing a wrong note.
Man, that's a good point. Yes.
Yeah, man. It shuts the whole game down. Everyone just thinks this band sucks. But same like bad drummer, bad band.
Yes.
Bad singer, bad band.
All right, I'm going to ask you a heavy question, and if it's too uncomfortable, we could skip it.
Not at all.
All right, but I was wondering what need might have gone unmet for you as a kid.
Man, that's, I think a lot about, there's a need that was unmet. I wish I'd learned, like, I really needed to figure out a way to deal with things other than getting pissed and fighting, or feeling like fighting is the answer, being aggressive was the answer, like, because I definitely said, like, I mean, I wasn't a violent person or anything like that, but, like high school, definitely did some scrapping and definitely took a few ass kickings. And, none of it ever solved a goddamn thing.
Yeah, that's the thing about that.
Yeah. And none of it, and I just wished I had, I think that need of having a way to,
conflict resolution skills.
Yeah. Of just not, I guess, yeah. I mean, I guess it more is of just letting shit go.
Yeah.
Not letting things like, not anger. Anger is the opposite of what, you should be doing.
It just never results in any fucking positive ever.
Never.
Even to like, that's why people like will send me shit. Or even today, this guy wants me to try his product. It's a software. And he found me online. And I guess because it's like a podcast related product. And I said, listen,
right.
I said, thank you very much, but I don't have a need for this particular thing. All right. And instead of saying nothing, he goes, well, that's okay. Just give it a test drive and see what you think. And like my knee jerk reaction was, do you fucking understand English? No is, and I said, no, I said, like, I was like, I'm going to write to him and say he's a pushy fucker. And I said, don't do that. What are you going to do with that energy once it's released? You're going to be miserable. And I said, but you have to like walk through this because people are just idiots sometimes and they're narcissists. It's like, oh, but I need you to do. I don't even know you, motherfucker. You're not paying me. What? I mean, it's great that you need me to give you a free evaluation of your software that I have no use for.
Right.
But that's a little nothing. Yeah. So I understand.
It is. But like, why, I'd let that shit bother me all day.
Dude, this is 4 hours ago it happened. I'm still pissed about it.
Refer to as the monkey stew.
Yeah.
He runs up the ladder, comes up here, starts stirring it, and he runs down. Then up in the late at night, he runs up the ladder again. He's stirring it up.
I like that.
Just, what are you over there monkey stewing about?
Yeah. And it's like, but yeah, that's an important.
Letting it go, man. I wish I'd had someone tell me how to let it go.
Was your dad like hot-headed?
What's that?
Was your dad hot-headed?
No, dad chill as well. Mom pretty hot-headed.
Oh, so that's kind of
where
so that's where
family failing.
Yeah,
like through all that, like it's generational.
Sure, of course. It's all generational until you stop it.
Isn't it though?
Until you stop it. Until you stop it. Yeah, man. It's funny because my son, my younger son, middle child, he sent me this thing. It was like 7 questions that you ask your dad. And I said, hey, and they were all pretty heavy. And I said, hey, listen, how about, and I didn't know if he wanted to answer them. He just sent me like a little video he saw. And I said, how about this, man? I said, I'll answer them. I'll make a video for you so you can hang on to these videos. And if you want to play them in the future, but I'll give you my honest answer. And one of the questions he asked, this was interesting. One of the questions in there was, what do you want or wish most for your kids? And I started answering it and I said, you know what? This is not relevant because they didn't have a fucked up childhood. It's like I'm answering it as if they had my childhood. And I'm like, this is going to be meaningless to him. Like, I want you to feel safe. Of course he fucking feels safe. Why would he not feel safe?
Right.
I've never put a hand on him.
Right.
No one's ever put a hand on him. I mean, like,
right.
No one's ever been like rough. And I'm like, well, I want you to feel like you're loved. I'm like, of course he feels like he's loved. That's why he asked me these questions. This isn't like a conversations I'd have with my father or mother, because I didn't have that. And so I felt very good. You get limited feedback from your kids. when they're older, which mine are older now, he's 31, and he started to give me feedback. Well, my older ones do, and even my daughter does. But those fucking ghosts, you got to it's a lot of work to get rid of those things, man. And I've spent a ton of my adult life trying to get rid of them.
Well, have you seen the movie No Country for Old Men or read the book No Country for Old Men?
With the
Tommy Lee Jones at the end.
Yes.
I always thought there'd be a point that God had come into my life and it would take care of this. And that says so much. I mean, I've really tried to read everything Cormac McCarthy's done since seeing that movie, then I went back with all the Westerns and everything. But that thing is so telling of an adult at a certain age. I'm just very like, man, I still feel this. I mean, I might not be as dumb as I was in my 20s, but man, I still feel like I'm the same guy. And when I think of myself, I look like that guy. I don't look like this guy, and like that. And I always just thought this wisdom and this being sure of yourself and being able to embrace happiness of like that. You always think that's going to be you get to be an age and like, oh man, the old man, you look at Joe, your day, like my old man, he's really chilled out. Seems like being a good place, everyone and that doesn't happen to anybody. They do it.
You got to work.
They actively do it.
Yeah.
They have to make these hard decisions of being like, man, I've got to confront this thing. I've got to let this thing go. I've got to, and are they even things? Or are they just stories you've told yourself your whole life to make sense of something that no one else is thinking about?
Yeah.
That's the one that sucks. Like,
wait, I know. It's
I didn't know what I was talking about. Son of a bitch. I based everything on that.
Yeah, it's if you want to get healthy or whatever the word is, it's a lot of work. I've spent a ton of work on that, and
man.
I think I've made some strides.
It's scary,
Of course,
nothing scarier than changing, man.
Yeah,
nothing scarier than change.
Well, I'm dealing with the issue in the first place.
Yeah,
that's the thing, and then you're like, okay, so I got it. Now, how do I fix it? And that answer doesn't come right away. That's
it ain't no car.
Yeah. Yeah,
that ain't your mower.
No, it's not getting a new guitar. It's nothing.
I would also like to shout out, but that segue out to Lewis Brothers Mower Repair around the corner from my house. Drop my mower off there at 12:05. I got a call at 3:10 p.m. Hey, your mower's ready.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Anyway, so that's there. A little upside of what embracing joy in your adult life. The thing that makes me the happiest is like I've just a solid mower guy. Like, that's where God comes into your life, Tommy Lee Jones. That is
when you get your mower back.
Small engine repair.
3 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a tough one, man. What do you like most about yourself?
Man. I hate this question.
I know most people do.
Man, I'm going to stick with it. I mean, I know I'm going to do that.
Your determination.
I'm going to stick it out. And that's something, if I'm doing the job, I'm going to finish the job. If I say I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you.
Yeah, man. Man of your word.
Like I like being that guy,
Yeah.
And that's ego. But I like being that guy that you can call, I'll come get you, man. No problem.
Yeah, that's cool though, man.
It is, it's a lot of it. I think is because of just realizing, like, I tell a lot of younger artists, like, hey man, no one is looking out for us. Like, so you've got to look out for your own.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, that kind of that mentality of like, all right, man, like that's a thing. Like, help your buddies move,
That one I don't know about. Man. That's a big ask.
What's that? It is a big ask.
That's a big ask, man.
Yeah, when well,
I'm always like, I'm doing my hair that weekend. Wait, that's a tough one, man.
Yeah,
moving.
There's also at a certain age, like,
Oh, I'm
you're
at that
an adult.
age.
You're like, you can hire movers.
Yeah, right.
Nobody wants a back injury.
Yeah,
for
right.
pizza and beer.
You're 40 years old. Hire somebody,
Yeah.
right? And it ain't your 60-year-old buddy.
Yeah, like.
You have any hobbies outside of music, Pat?
Man, I really like riding
reading.
mountain bikes. I'm not super great at it, and the weather's been shit. But I really enjoy that. I don't jump up in the air or leave the ground anymore, but I sure dig it. I've got some other, fat old men buddies that we ride. We're all sort
That's
of
cool.
the same thing. I really, really like that a lot.
Very cool, man.
I mean, as far as a hobby, that's the only thing I really ever spent money on outside of guitars. I mean, my job's a hobby, so
Sure.
And you get a lot of fun,
All right, 2 questions. Toughest decision you had to make, or most difficult thing you had to do?
God, I don't know.
Besides this interview.
Yeah. That's toughest decision. I don't know, man. There's always, it's a lot of times, the big changes in your life, you really don't get a decision.
There's not
whether or not.
Yeah.
You've got sink or swim.
Yeah.
As far as like that, I don't know if I can really answer that kind of like what it would be. That's because I even looked at that one and I thought of like kind of tried to come up with some, I obviously, I like to hear the sound of my own voice. That's apparent by this entire interview. But that one, I'm like, man, what are those? I mean, like, I never thought I'd own how I'd buy a house, and we got, and my wife was like, well, I'm going to. And
why didn't
you can either get in on this or not.
Or not. Yeah.
Like, so, because I just never, I never thought it was even a remote possibility doing what I do.
Good. I'm glad.
I just never thought. And then, and it was everything, that 15 years of the t-shirt skim that I had hid in, in a shoebox.
Oh, that's cool, man.
That was most of my down payment.
That's awesome. That's a great,
no, it's a short-sighted buster ass.
No, that's cool that you hid that.
Way of thinking, like I could have had all that money working for me, man. I could have done it,
But it is.
Like I could instead of putting it in a box and hiding it, and it wasn't a ton of money, but it was like.
But it is.
I think it was $7,000.
Yeah, but I
didn't know how much was in there, but I'd been throwing money in this box.
That's awesome, man.
It was just, I think, I don't know if there's
Good thing it wasn't in the back of the truck with the CD player.
Exactly. Man, oh man.
Yeah.
But also, it was that, but also I had to like go to like my cousins and my brothers and like, hey, here's a couple grand in cash. Don't deposit this all at once.
Yeah.
And write me a check for this to like, to like prove it exists.
Sure.
Like, like,
yeah.
But I didn't know. I didn't know anything. Again, you expect smarts to come into your life, and that don't happen either.
No, it's like, yeah, but you figure stuff out.
But also like that, like, so being able to just to pull it off. I mean, I think that was a great decision, But again, that wasn't really a decision I made.
Right.
That one was, I was given a choice of sink or swim, and I chose swim.
Good for you, man.
Thanks, man.
And congratulations on the house.
Thanks. Yeah, man. We, now just, keeping it up. That's
hey, one day at a time,
down
man.
Into the earth now.
One day at a
which
time.
is easier than, but,
most fun thing you ever done?
God, I have so much fun all the time. I really do. I really, really do. I mean, like so much of what I do is so fun. That's really hard to answer. I've thought about that one a lot. Man, like, like my favorite, I play guitar every day. It's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
Having a good gig, playing, that's real fun. That's so hard to answer, like having a great bike ride with your buddies is so fun, like that's,
man, that's a good thing that you're struggling answering this question because you got too many things.
It's like,
that's great.
Dedicate your life to a child's hobby. That'll, you really, the fun is it,
No, I get it. I totally
It's like
do.
my Monday night gig. My Monday night gig. I do every Monday from 6 to 8 with the Tiger Beats. That gig is so goddamn fun. I get complete cathartic release, never into playing the best material ever to hit, it's so fun. In my regular club, I get my 2 scotches and in a killer band, and that's it. That's all I need. I'm just like, that is the most fun. I do that every Monday, like
that's cool, man.
It's so cool. I feel like, like a real jerk for having to to say like, I'm sorry, but it's so fun. I was out on the road with the boys, went out and just played a one-off and that's so fun, having laughs with the guys. Super fun, like
that's cool, man.
Yeah,
And last question.
All right.
Biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and has that change been intentional or just a part of aging?
Man, the B part of that really, really, really puts the answer uphill. Well, I think I'm a lot happier in my demeanor. I'm a lot less confrontational. Man, that's, but is that just a part of aging? And just realizing that, like, I don't know, that's take me through the question again. First part.
Yeah. Biggest change in your personality.
Biggest change. So we're talking about specific
change in your personality or demeanor, over the last 10 years. And has that change been intentional or just a natural part of aging?
Well, I think viewing things less adversarial, or like challenges being less adversarial. The role of where this is against me, or I'm against this. And that was a real, I think that was an active decision of learning, how to
just shifting your attitude about things.
Just dial it back, man. No one's trying to take something away from you.
Right.
No one is trying to challenge you. That. So definitely that. But mind you, we can still shift into that gear. That's always that gear is always on the console. We don't always use it, but I think that's it. And but maybe it's a part of aging, because if you keep that up, you don't get to age.
That's very true.
You don't get to maintain the relationships that you rely on.
Yeah, man.
Or make new ones.
See, Tommy Lee Jones was right.
Man, he's something else.
You got it.
That's hard. So what is the function versus the effect is that's always a thing. Or is it, is it a function of the phenomenon? Is it an effect of the phenomenon?
Right.
And that's, having the patience to think about that, I guess that's a sign.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it matters.
You're just composing of hey, I've got the forethought to understand, to analyze what this situation, rather than just being like, I've did it and I'm right, or I have such deep regret about this, I'll think about it forever.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good thing, man.
Like, I'm just being able to sort of just unbox it a little bit, take a little time to be like, oh, man. I definitely think, being able to admit mistakes is so much easier now.
Good.
Than it's ever been, because, the only person, that feels the consequences is you,
I was at a I think it was an Al-Anon or Nar-Anon meeting one time. And someone said something. It was like the reading of the day. And it opened it up and it said, "What's so important about being right?" And this is maybe 13 years ago. Something I heard, just ready to hear that message. And Al-Anon, I don't know if it was Al-Anon or not. That's where you go for other people.
Oh, no, I'm very familiar.
Okay. So, and it changed my whole relationship with my wife, because up until that point, I had been it was important to me to be right.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of unnecessary conflict as a result of that. And when I heard that,
playing my greatest hits,
dude, I came home and I said, "Babe, I'm really sorry. I've been kind of an asshole about certain things." And I something about what they said, and it changed the whole dynamic of my relationship with her. Man. And that's continued to get better from other changes I'm a lot more open-minded to over the last 13 years. Yeah, it was really being right. And I never had a problem admitting my mistakes when like with my kids. Mm-hmm. I've fucked up lots of things, but I've always said, "Hey guys, I'm sorry. I did the best I can. I fucked up." But something about that, hearing that, it was just the right place, the right time.
Man, that's as heavy as it gets, man.
Yeah, it was great.
That is of like, what is so important about being,
Exactly.
And also in that setting too, of like, there's not a person alive today whose life hasn't been affected by addiction.
Oh my God.
In some form or other. Like there's nobody left.
Nobody
in this world who isn't directly affected,
unless they're
by
lying.
Someone in their family. Yeah, I'm saying there's nobody left.
Yeah, right.
That isn't affected by that. And that's, man, of course, this isn't right what you're doing. So, like,
right.
I don't have control over this, man. Like,
yeah, right.
You think the right or wrong part that you're telling me about is what's on my mind?
Yeah,
right now?
Right.
Like,
I know people
just
don't get it.
Being unable to say, man, it's amazing. Just being unable. It cuts so much to the heart of what I was talking about before.
Yeah,
being mad at dead people.
right.
Like that. They were wrong.
Yeah,
I got it.
Yeah,
like that. I'm like, oh yeah. Great.
Yeah. Okay.
You were right.
Yeah. Okay.
It's still, you still got to put 50 cents in the Coke machine, homie.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Being right don't get you a free pop,
Totally,
like,
man.
Yeah.
But dude,
have I enjoyed the shit out of this, Craig.
Thank you, man. Me too. I want to tell people where to find you. Thanks so much for your time, Pat. I really appreciate it. It's nice, man.
I
was
honored,
like, it's always
honored.
No, it's very cool. It's always cool for me to meet sort of musical heroes of mine, because I've admired your music for so long, and you've like already made me feel really good just by listening to your music, So it's so cool then when I get to sit and have a conversation.
Well, it's not something I'm always honored that, you get to be a part of life.
Yeah, man.
Someone else. Because that music was my only thing.
Yeah. Well,
the only thing I had.
You reached me.
That was really mine, and that it reaches other people. I never once thought about it that way.
Yeah. You reached
until
me.
It started happening.
Thank you.
So I'm honored that anyone would even care to hear the story. Like, that they're even acknowledge that there is some sort of story to be told.
Sure, man.
Because it's it, my job's to put it on the record, man.
Yeah.
You hear it through the song, and that's the part that matters. But to get to talk about it is something I really, really enjoy, and I really am honored.
Thank you, man. Likewise.
So
now you're making me cry, man. Enough
Good.
of this.
Man, I'm crying a goddamn wind chime. I'm sorry, folks. You got
It's all right.
emotionally unstable man child, whatever.
All right, let me tell
But
people.
I have great guitar tone, and I will go on record as saying that.
You have amazing guitar tone.
Thank you.
Let me tell people where to find
a lifetime of hoarding.
A lifetime of hoarding.
Hoarding gets a bad rap.
Let me.
There are 7 amplifiers just in frame.
How many guitars do you have?
God. At last count. And this is all just like pieces of, like junky little Japanese things that I just buy, because I was bored on tour. Well, all right. In this room.
I mean, just ballpark.
In this 10 by 12 room. I'm just saying this is what in this room there are 22.
Wow. Holy shit. You're my idol. Fitting 22 guitars in a 10 by 12 room.
When I say hoarder, I mean hoarder.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bad, man.
I had a guest on the other day, and I'm like, and he's like, I said, well, how many guitars do you have? He goes, well over 100. I'm like, oh, shit.
Me and the old man's collection put together, and again, there's only a couple things that are worth, but it's over 75.
Wow. See, I feel good when I hear this. So if I buy an extra guitar, that's like nothing.
It's nothing.
Do you happen to know?
Self-care.
Self-care, yes.
Honey, don't you want me to feel good about me?
My wife is so
this
cool.
This object does it. It's the only one that's proven to do it.
Right.
Nothing else. Cars, nope. Boat, nope.
Guitars, yes.
Always for pleasure.
Let me tell people where to find you. Hold on a second. If you're not familiar with Pat's music, I'd love you to check out Patrick Sweany, SWEANY. You can go to his website, patricksweany.com. Follow him. I don't know the word. Okay. Like his Facebook page. And finally got these adjectives right, or adverbs. And
Nerd.
Follow him on Instagram. Yeah, just Instagram and Facebook, Patrick Sweany. Also, if you're in Nashville.
Patrick Sweany Official on Instagram. If you see me, I'll be my profile picture is me grinning wildly, pointing at Rick Nielsen right there. So it says Patrick Sweany Official. We're still
Well, also, if you're in Nashville, please make sure you stop by the 5 spot on a Monday night from 6 to 8 to check out Pat's standing gig, the Tiger Beats. He talked about the band. His whole catalog and a merch store is on his website. And listen, he's going to need another house one day. He's going to need to skim off the merch thing. Hook him up. And
that's right. The skim. It's hard. The cash skim is harder to do with the online.
It is like, what do I do with this
different
email?
Different world.
Also, if you're interested in taking Pat, we haven't really talked a lot about his guitar playing. He's a phenomenal guitar player and a slide guitar player. If you're into any kind of blues or country blues or even finger style, his first record, which we didn't talk about, he did an all finger style record, which is phenomenal. But if you're interested in taking some lessons and working with Patrick, go to you could DM him on Instagram, Patrick Sweany Official, or on his website, Patrick Sweany, again, SWEANY.com. He's a contact.
We're a small business. So if the email doesn't go to Rick, it goes to me.
Great.
And if it goes to Rick first, he'll send it to me.
Awesome. Awesome. So if you're interested in lessons,
just the teaching, just the building blocks. If you're interested in blues music, I'm not a guy that can, teach you how to play Charlie Christian solos or anything like that, like that. But I can start you on the building blocks of the tenets of the style to kind of give you sort of your roadmap to it. And, cause that's the way I was taught. And, can't watch the old guys anymore. They're all gone. So I'm the old guy in the room now.
There you go. But you do it great, man. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, man. Any final words of wisdom?
Man, I think we covered it all, man. I hope there was enough
exhausting
music and guitar content before we went off on,
our spiritual journey together. Hey, man, thank you very much. You ever come down to Florida? Do you ever tour down here? It's a hard state.
Man, we really want to. It's just Florida's kind of an island.
It's a very
down there. It's hard to get there, but that is
it's a very tough place
we're gonna
to tour.
String something to. Usually, you have to have some sort of festival anchor because it's a gigantic state.
Yeah, it's hard.
But
the cities are spread out.
Where are you at
Tampa.
in Florida?
West Coast.
Oh, you're
Tampa.
in Tampa.
Yeah,
Oh, right
yeah.
on.
You know, there's a blues guy who tours a lot here. Do you know Sean Chambers?
Yeah.
He's from down here though, but he tours a lot down here. He's a really sweet
he's
guy.
Killer, man.
Yeah.
No, Sean's a killer player.
Yeah. Killer player, and really nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's good to hear.
Yeah, he's down here.
Strat. He plays a Strat.
Yeah, he plays a a cream. What's it called?
Yes.
White. You know the Strat. It's you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly. Yeah. No, that dude's real good.
Yeah, he's really good.
Tone monster.
Yep.
Like you know.
Plays the kind of blues that you would listen to as well. He did I enjoy his music. Yeah, I think his last record was a set of Hubert Sumlin covers because he used to play with Hubert's music director.
That's why I know about him.
He was Hubert's music director back in the day. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's you know what I remember him from the Hubert. I have some other friends that played with Hubert and did Yeah,
man. Well, if you come down here, make sure you let me know. All right.
Will, absolutely.
Well, hang on a second. I'm going to wrap this up. And thanks for everything, Pat. I really appreciate your time. It's great getting to know you. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your socials. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much to Patrick Sweany. Please go check out his music. Again, follow him on Instagram, Facebook. Check out the Tiger Beats if you're in Nashville at the 5 Spot Monday night. And if you're interested in lessons, slide, guitar, country blues, fingerstyle, hit him up on Instagram or his website and check out his music. He's hell of a songwriter, man, and a great picker. And his voice is amazing. So thanks for listening. Most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, baby. Go play your guitar and have fun. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Thanks for listening. Pat, thanks for everything, brother.
Thanks, y'all. Thank you, Greg.